It will kill a much larger shark and take the liver. It will drown a sea turtle inside its own shell, crush the bone, and swallow the pieces. It has been recorded ramming prey with its skull, again and again, a blunt battering technique before the teeth ever get involved. And its bite has been measured among the hardest of any shark for its size on Earth. And then it does the one thing no apex predator of the open ocean is supposed to be able to do. It swims into a river, not to the edge, not into the brackish shallows where the salt thins out, all the way in. Bull sharks have been documented thousands of kilometers up the Amazon, deep into the Mississippi system, and inside a lake in Central America that people insisted for centuries held its own private race of man-eaters, full-strength ocean predator, hundreds of kilometers from the sea, in water that should not be able to keep it alive for a single afternoon. Here is the paradox at the center of this file, that water is not neutral to a shark. Fresh water is actively trying to kill it, chemically, from the inside. Every second it stays, almost every other shark on the planet would be dead within hours. This one raises its young there on purpose. The question is not simply how it survives the river. It is why an animal this dangerous chose to solve a problem the rest of its lineage never even attempted. And the answer, when you follow it all the way down, is not about strength at all. It is about fear. Start with why the river is lethal, because until you understand that, none of this makes sense. Every living cell is essentially a bag of salty water, and salt water obeys a rule that does not negotiate. Water moves across a membrane from the weaker solution toward the stronger one, trying to equalize the two sides. It is called osmosis, and for anything living in the wrong kind of water, it is relentless. Most bony fish in the sea are less salty inside than the ocean around them, so the sea constantly pulls water out of them. They are perpetually drying out from within, and they drink to compensate. Sharks solved that problem in a completely different way, tens of millions of years ago, and the solution is the thing that traps them. A shark does not fight the ocean's saltiness. It matches it. It loads its own blood with so much dissolved material that it becomes just as concentrated as seawater, sometimes slightly more. The main ingredient it uses is urea, the same nitrogen waste compound that your body flushes out in urine. A shark does the opposite. It hoards it. It floods its tissues with urea and a second compound that protects its proteins from that urea. And it holds the whole mixture in perfect balance with the sea. Chemically level with the ocean, it neither gains nor loses water. It is a beautiful piece of engineering, and it is built entirely around the assumption that the water outside will always be salty. Now put that animal in a river. Suddenly the shark is the salty thing for kilometers. Its blood is a concentrated broth, and the fresh water around it is nearly pure. Osmosis reverses and comes on hard. Water floods inward across every thin membrane it can find, mostly the enormous surface of the gills, trying to dilute the animal from the inside. At the same time, the precious salts and urea it spent millions of years learning to hoard begin leaking out into the river, down the same gradient. The system runs backwards. A shark dropped into fresh water is being simultaneously waterlogged and drained of the exact chemistry that keeps it alive. For almost every shark in the ocean, that is the end of the story, which raises the obvious question of how this one walks straight into the thing that should destroy it. Before we get to how, there is a detail about this shark that is going to matter later, and it is worth naming now because it is the reason so many people already know its name. Of all the sharks in the sea, this is one of the very few that ends up on the short list every time a human being is killed in the water. Not because it is the largest, and not because it hunts us on purpose. It is because of where it chooses to be. This animal specializes in exactly the water we specialize in. Warm shallows, murky river mouths, cloudy coastal surf where you cannot see your own feet. The places it hunts are the places we swim. And in water that turbid, a shark that rams first and identifies its target second is a genuinely dangerous neighbor. Its reputation for unpredictability is not mythology. It is a predator built for low visibility, operating in the exact zone where our lives overlap with its hunting ground. Hold that thought, because it is not a coincidence. The same trait that puts this shark in the water with us is the same trait this entire file is about: the willingness to leave the clean blue ocean and push into the murky, the shallow, the fresh, everything that makes it dangerous to a swimmer, and everything that makes it a biological miracle, is the same single decision to go where other sharks will not. But first, the miracle itself. It rebuilds its chemistry on the move, and it does it with organs most people have never heard of. The first is the one at the center of the whole trick. Deep in a shark's body sits a small finger of tissue called the rectal gland, and in the ocean, it has one job: dump salt. Seawater sharks are constantly taking on excess sodium and chloride, and this gland secretes it back out in a concentrated stream, a dedicated salt disposal unit. When a bull shark enters fresh water, there is no excess salt to dump. There is a shortage, so the gland powers down. Studies tracking the machinery inside it show its salt pumping activity dropping sharply in fresh water. The entire organ dialed back because its function has been reversed by the environment. Then the kidneys take over, and they go into overdrive. A bull shark in a river produces enormous volumes of extremely dilute urine, flushing out the flood of incoming water as fast as it arrives. Some measurements put it at close to 20 times the urine output it would produce in the sea. But it cannot simply pour everything out, because the river is also stealing its urea. So the kidney does something clever. As it expels the water, it reclaims the urea before it can escape, actively pulling those molecules back into the blood while letting the water go. Keep the chemistry, lose the flood, and the whole apparatus, the down-regulated gland, the overclocked kidneys, the constant reabsorption, runs on fuel. It burns glucose. It demands oxygen. Holding your internal chemistry steady against a river is not a passive state. It is metabolic work performed continuously for as long as the animal stays. That last detail is the thread that unravels the entire mystery, so hold on to it. Survival in the river is not free. The shark is paying for it by the hour. And here the file has to correct a claim you have probably heard, because the honest version is more interesting than the myth. The bull shark is often called the only shark that can live in fresh water. It is not. There is a small group of genuinely river-dwelling sharks, sometimes called river sharks, that spend most of their lives in low salinity water. And they are so rare and so poorly studied that some are among the least understood large animals on the planet. There are the sawfish, which are not sharks but close relatives, rays with a body built like a blade, and they push deep into rivers too. And there are the true freshwater stingrays of South America, which went so far down this road that they threw the whole system away entirely. Those stingrays have lost the ability to hoard urea at all. Their salt gland has withered to nothing. They can never go back to the sea. They burned the boat. That last group matters because it shows what the extreme end of this path actually looks like. Total commitment. A one-way door. And the bull shark, notably, did not walk through it. It kept its ocean chemistry fully intact and simply learned to switch it on and off. Where the freshwater stingray abandoned the sea forever, the bull shark refused to choose. It kept a foot in both worlds, which sounds like the safer bet, until you ask why an animal would go to all the trouble of keeping the door open and never fully commit to the river it worked so hard to enter. The answer is that it was never trying to move in. It was only ever trying to visit, and to understand why, you have to look at who goes and when. But before we follow that cost, there is a physical problem the chemistry does not explain. Some of these sharks are not just in rivers. They are in places that should be sealed off from the sea entirely. There is a lake in Nicaragua, the largest in Central America, a genuine inland freshwater sea with waves and islands. And it has sharks. For centuries, the local people described them, and outsiders treated it as folklore. The way every lake eventually acquires a monster, except the fishermen were right. There were sharks in the lake, and they were biting people. And they were unmistakably real. The explanation everyone reached for first was geological. The lake, they reasoned, must once have been a bay of the sea, cut off long ago by volcanic upheaval. Its trapped marine animals, slowly adapting as the water freshened over the centuries. A lost world of sharks, marooned and evolving in isolation. It was a satisfying story. Scientists even gave the lake shark its own species name. It was wrong. And the way it was proven wrong is one of the great pieces of patient fieldwork in the history of shark science. Beginning in the 1960s, an American zoologist named Thomas Thorson ran a tagging program in the lake and the river, connecting it to the Caribbean. And he ran it for years. Over roughly 6 years, he and his colleagues tagged more than 1,600 adult bull sharks, over 1,200 juveniles, and hundreds of sawfish. Then they waited to see where the tags turned up. They turned up on the other side. Sharks tagged in the lake were recovered on the Caribbean coast. Sharks tagged at the coast were recovered in the lake. Individual animals had traveled the entire length of the river, upstream and downstream, in both directions. The lake sharks were not a maroon species and never had been. They were ordinary bull sharks, and they were swimming in from the open sea, up a long river studded with rapids, and back out again, as a matter of routine. The lake shark and the coastal bull shark were the same animal. The monster had a commute. To make the upstream run, the sharks pushed through stretches of rapids, moving against the current in a way that got them compared, inevitably, to salmon. They were never trapped. They chose to be there, and they chose to leave, over and over, the whole thing running on that same expensive internal chemistry the entire time. Which brings us back to the question the tagging data forces into the open. All of this, the rebuilt kidneys, the reversed gland, the fight up the rapids, the metabolic bill paid by the hour, costs the animal something real. Evolution does not hand out that kind of machinery for a novelty. So what is the prize? What is up the river that is worth this much? For a long time, the intuitive answer was food, and it is not nothing. Rivers and estuaries are stacked with prey, and a predator that can tolerate fresh water walks into a pantry with almost no competition from other sharks. But food alone does not explain the pattern, because the pattern has an age to it, and the age is the key that turns the whole lock. Go and look at where the smallest bull sharks are, and the answer stops being about hunting and starts being about survival. In the rivers of Central America, researchers sampling the mouths of 2 river systems over 5 years pulled in more than 1,000 newborn bull sharks. Almost every single one of them, over 99 in 100, was caught in strictly fresh water, inside the river mouths, in the shallow, low salinity channels. Not the adults, the babies. The same story repeats across the world, in Australian rivers, in the African river that gave the shark one of its regional names, in the Florida estuaries. The nurseries are almost always in the fresh or near fresh water. The adults come to the boundary to give birth, and the young stay behind in the river for the first years of their lives. And here is the part that reframes everything. Those newborn sharks do not actually need the fresh water to survive. They are born fully capable of handling full-strength seawater from day one. The river is not a physiological requirement for them. It is a choice. Or rather, it is a choice their species made for them, written into where the mothers go to give birth. So if the pups can survive in the sea, and fresh water costs energy and slows their growth, why are they in the river at all? because of what is waiting for them in the ocean. And a great deal of it is their own kind. The open coast is full of large predators, and the single most dangerous animal to a baby bull shark is very often an adult bull shark. In marine conditions, the species is cannibalistic. The nursery in the river is not primarily a feeding ground, and it is not a physiological haven. It is a bunker. It is a place chosen specifically because the big predators, including the adults of their own species, mostly cannot or will not follow them into it. The whole extraordinary apparatus, the urea hoarding thrown into reverse, the kidneys running 20 times as hard, the gland shut down, all of that biological machinery exists in service of one strategic goal: to put the young somewhere the monsters can't reach. The most dangerous shark in the river is a child, hiding from its parents. That is the reversal at the center of this animal. And once you see it, the fearsome reputation reads completely differently. This is not a conqueror that expanded into fresh water to rule a new kingdom. This is a species whose infants are so vulnerable to their own that evolution engineered an escape route out of the ocean itself. The strength is real. The battering skull, the bite, the liver eating, all real. But it was built on top of a much older problem, which is that the sea was never safe for the young, not even from their own family, and a solution that elegant still comes with a bill attached, which is where the file turns dark, because the river was never a perfect refuge. It was a trade, and every part of the trade has a cost that is now being called in. Start with the metabolic one, the thread we have been holding since the beginning. A juvenile bull shark in fresh water is spending energy every hour just to stay chemically intact. Energy that a fish native to that river simply does not have to spend. That is fuel not going into growth. The safety of the nursery is purchased partly with the shark's own development, and it grows more slowly for having chosen the safer room. Then there is the deeper vulnerability, the one that turns the whole strategy into a liability. When a species funnels its entire next generation into a handful of specific river mouths and estuaries, it hands a single point of failure to anything that can damage those places. And the thing that damages those places is us. The nurseries of the bull shark are estuaries, mangroves, river mouths, coastal shallows, which is to say precisely the water humans dam, dredge, pollute, and build on top of. An open ocean predator can flee a bad patch of sea. A pup locked into a specific estuary for the first years of its life cannot flee anything. The refuge that hides it from other sharks holds it perfectly still for us. In the lake in Nicaragua, where this file found its clearest evidence, delivers the final, quiet verdict. Those sharks reach the lake by fighting up the rapids of a single river. That river is their only road, and in the decades since Thorson's tags proved they were free-swimming commuters rather than trapped natives, that road has been silting up, the channel choking with sediment until it became harder and harder to pass. The population in the lake has collapsed. The animals were never landlocked by nature, but by clogging the one river they depended on, we may have finally done what the volcanoes never did. We trapped them, or we shut the door on them entirely. So return to where this started. A shark that rams turtles, crushes bone, eats other sharks, and walks into water built to kill it. It looks, from the outside, like the story of a predator that conquered a frontier no other shark could reach. It is the opposite. It is the story of an animal so haunted by the dangers of its own ocean, so unable to keep its young safe from even itself, that it evolved a way to smuggle the next generation out of the sea entirely and hide them in the one place the hunters could not go. The freshwater ability that makes it famous is not a weapon of expansion. It is the most elaborate act of protection in the shark world, and the young pay for it in growth, and the species pays for it now in every estuary we choke and every river we dam. The bull shark did not beat the river. It fled into it. And the thing it was fleeing was the same dark water that made it strong, which leaves one question worth arguing about. And Apex Files wants your answer. We tend to call an animal successful when it can go where nothing else can. But this one only went there because the alternative was worse. So which is the real measure of a predator? The strength it shows in open water, or the lengths it will go to protect the young it cannot otherwise keep alive? Make the case in the comments. And if this reframed an animal you thought you already understood, hit like. Because that is the entire point of this channel. Subscribe, because the next file belongs to a predator that hunts things it does not even eat. And the reason why is one of the most disturbing behaviors in the ocean. Apex Files. Case closed. For now.